I have loads and loads of cucumbers, more than I can eat fresh, which means I need to preserve my cucumbers. And I've been making loads and loads of pickles. But today, I'm trying something different for long-term storage of preserved cucumbers. Join me as I freeze dry my cucumbers and pickles. Hi, I'm Gardener Scott, and making pickles is generally the preferred method for preserving our cucumbers. But when we make our pickles, they lose that cucumber flavor, and they take on the flavor of whichever method we're using. These are fermented cucumbers that I sliced, put in the jars, and added the flavors of cayenne peppers and garlic. And here I have some refrigerator pickles. I added the flavor of dill and garlic and red onions. Now, I love eating my cucumbers this way, pickled in either vinegar or fermented. But to maintain that cucumber flavor for drinks, for dips, for soups, I think freeze drying is really the best option. I'm using my own cucumbers today that I harvested from my garden, and I'll be slicing these into 1/4-inch slices. I'm going to be working solely with cucumber slices today. And for the first tray that I'll put into my dehydrator, I am not peeling the cucumber. Now, if you buy cucumbers from the store, you probably want to peel them because most cucumbers that we buy are coated with wax. And that wax isn't going to work well in the freeze dryer. And so the raw cucumbers that I'll be freeze drying, one batch will have the skin remaining on it, and another batch I will peel the cucumbers so you can see how the slices turn out when they're done. I'll place the cut slices on my freeze dryer tray. I'm going to make a smaller batch, and I'm going to limit how much they overlap each other. So for now, I'm just spreading them out in a single layer on the tray. These cucumbers are plain. I'm not adding any salt. I'm not adding sugar. They're just cucumbers. My freeze dryer is pre-cooled, so I went ahead and put that first tray in because this isn't going to take very long to get the other trays filled. And now I'm just slicing off the skin of the cucumber that's going to fill the second tray. Now, I'm planning on using the freeze-dried cucumbers in a couple different ways. The first batch had no seasoning, but I'll do this batch a little bit differently. With the cucumber peeled, now I'll just do the same as before and slice it into 1/4-inch pieces. Now, you could definitely go smaller with the slices or bigger with the slices, but for me, I think the 1/4-inch slices work very well. And then once this is completely sliced, I'll put it in the tray. For this batch, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of dill on it. These are dried dill leaves that I collected from my own dill plants. I think dill and cucumber goes very well together, so sprinkling a little bit of dill on these cucumbers should add extra flavor when they're completely freeze-dried. As you're cutting your cucumbers and putting them on the tray, something I suggest you do is take a slice and taste it. So good, sweet, tastes like a cucumber. But I've had some really hot weather recently, and some of the cucumbers that I've harvested have been bitter. So you don't want to go through this whole process and freeze dry a bitter cucumber, because the freeze drying process is not going to make it taste better. With the raw cucumbers done, now I'm going to move on to my pickles. Now these fermented pickles are also very delicious. I cut them as well relatively thickly, 1/4 inch, some of them are a little bit bigger. And now I'll go ahead and lay them on the tray as well. And I'll take the garlic and the cayenne peppers that were in my jars during fermentation and go ahead and freeze dry them. The refrigerator pickles are done the same way. And these also have garlic and dill that have been added to it. The difference is for this, I also have some red onions, and I'll place some of the red onions on my freeze dryer tray and let them freeze dry. Basically, all of this you can put into your freeze dryer. Now, I've left the seeds in my cucumbers. You can definitely de-seed the cucumbers if you don't want those seeds in your final freeze-dried slices. I'm not worried about that. The way I'm going to be using these, it's not going to be a problem. I'll take all of these onions and just sprinkle them across the top. And you can see how fast this process goes with all 4 trays. Now it's important to point out that cucumbers are mostly water, 90 to 95% water. So the freeze drying process is going to take a long time. I've added an hour to the freeze portion and 2 hours to the dry portion, and we'll see if that's enough. I'm expecting that it's going to be about 30 hours. So let's go ahead and get this last tray loaded and find out. The last tray is in, the valve is closed, I'll hit continue, and it's freezing. I'll come back when it says it's done. Surprisingly, these were finished drying in just over 23 hours. So I vented and I'm checking the dryness. They seem perfectly dry, so let's go ahead and take these up to the kitchen and we'll talk more about freeze-dried cucumbers. Of course, with any freeze-dried product, first thing you got to do is taste it. Now, I'll taste the plain cucumber chips first. Good crunch. Good cucumber flavor. I can taste a little bitterness from the skin, but it's not that bad. These are the cucumbers that I had peeled and then sprinkled with a little bit of dill. Oh, that's really nice. The sweetness of the cucumber definitely comes out without the peel on it. Now let's try some of these pickles. So these are the fermented pickles, and they had a different color when I put them into the dehydrator, and sure enough, they have a different color coming out. Oh, really good. With these, I can pick up the flavor of the garlic that was present when I made the pickles. A little bit of heat, because I did make them with cayenne, so that heat transferred over to this chip. This would make a really good snack. It's salty because I used a salt brine when fermenting the pickles. So it's got salt garlic, a little bit of heat, and some cucumber flavor. These refrigerator pickles also retained the color during the freeze drying. And so these have that little bit of a vinegar flavor along with some good cucumber. I can pick up the onion and a little bit of sweetness because I added sugar to my refrigerator pickle liquid. All very tasty. So as a snack, these are great, but let me show you a couple different options in using just the plain cucumbers. The first thing I'm going to do is drop some of these cucumber slices into a glass of cold water. The cucumbers are soaking in the water to make cucumber water. Once they're more fully rehydrated, I'll add some ice, and this can be a very refreshing, cooling drink, but we'll need to give that some time. The next thing I'm going to make is a cucumber garlic dip. I'm starting with a 1/4 cup of mayonnaise and a 1/4 cup of sour cream, and I'll take 8 of my cucumber slices and give them a nice coarse chop. And then I'll add these cucumber slices to the sour cream and the mayonnaise. The mayonnaise and the sour cream will help reconstitute these freeze-dried cucumbers. I may need to add a little bit of water, but I'll see how they do first. Now, I said this was a garlic cucumber dip, so I'm going to take one of those garlic cloves that I had from making the pickles. I'll give this a finer chop, and then we'll add this to the sour cream and mayonnaise, and we'll give it a nice stir, blend everything together. And I'm going to put this in the refrigerator. I'll let it all combine for about 30 minutes, see if I need to add any water to it, and then we'll see how the dip turns out. So I'll be back. At the 30-minute point, the dip was pretty thick, so I added 2 teaspoons of water, and I've let it sit for another 30 minutes. And I allowed the cucumber water to rest for the same amount of time. So after an hour, let's give it a taste test. Oh, that's really nice. Smells like cucumber, tastes like cucumber. This will be an outstanding summertime drink any time of the year. As to the dip, let's give it a taste test as well. Now remember, I used the sliced cucumbers that already had dill on them. If I used the plain cucumbers, I would have added some dill to the dip, but I think this will probably be enough. That's really good. I can taste the dill, can definitely taste the cucumber. I did add a pinch of salt while I put it back in the refrigerator. This is a really good dip. You could take some of the onion that was freeze-dried and add to the dip as well, but I think the subtle garlic and the strong cucumber is definitely enough. I went ahead and put the pickle chips in jars. They're such wonderful snacks that these jars will be empty in a few days. And I have bought pickles from the store and freeze-dried them. They work just as well. I just like the flavors of the pickles that I make myself. Freeze-dried cucumbers and how to use it. What can be easier than that? I'm Gardener Scott. Enjoy gardening and preserving your harvests.